And the rest of the field continues down the front straightaway. As the fans give them their wave, they return the wave from the driver's compartment of the cars now as they pull down the front straightaway. And they'll be filing up into rows 2 by 2 behind the Bob Hook safety car. Pace car on the back straightaway, who's equipped with the all-new laser light show being displayed from the Bob Hook pace car on the back straightaway. Again, as we complete our wave lap. And now the field of cars will go from a single file line and pair off into rows 2 by 2. The Kimmel brothers will lead the field to the flag. Anticipating the green flag in the start of the Renegades Racing 300 this time around. A pair of red Chevrolet Monte Carlos will lead the field to the line. And the Renegades Racing 300 is underway tonight at Louisville Motor Speedway. Completing lap number 1, and it's Bill Kimmel Jr. out front. Frank Kimmel at second. Roland Isaacs goes third. Bill Webb goes fourth. Brian Ross rounding out the top 5 as they complete lap number 2. Good battle just outside the top 5 now as we have Lenny LeGrand on the number 04 on the outside of Keith Gardner in the number 98. And this is the battle back around the number 9 spot. Gardner will take the position away, but Chase Winters down into turns 1 and 2. Battle now at 4th as Brian Ross in car number 42 drops down to the inside of Bill Webb in car number 5. They're side by side on the back straightaway for the number 4 position. And Brian Ross now gains 1 spot. He moves into the number 4 position.
Picked up 4 spots in 4 laps.
And the word is the number 81, Freddie Query, appears to be on the move. The number 81 has picked up 4 spots in only about 3 laps. Keep your eyes on the number 81 of Freddie Query. Here's Freddie Query in the 81 now. He'll drop down to the inside of Lenny LeGrand as they pass Kenny Cutter on the back straightaway. Winters and Gardner now move past Cutter. Here's Freddie Query down to the inside of Lenny LeGrand. Tags up with the number 46 of Kenny Cutter going into turn number 1. And the caution flag comes out. Kenny Cutter's car now collected by the number 24 of Tim Rader in turn number 2. And that'll send out the caution flag. 292 laps remaining.
I see it.
Bill Kimmel Jr. and Frank Kimmel in the number 68. And the pace car just gets down to the infield in time. We're back under green. Back in the number 5 position now as Keith Gardner in the number 98 moves up on Chuck Winters in car number 8 as they move on to the front straightaway. And some scrambling at the tail of the field as we have Joey Williamson, the 27 of Dr. Jeff Berg, and the number 9 of Jim Kirk, all set to go a lap down the field. Joey Williamson is at least 1 lap down. Now possibly 2 to 3 laps behind the race leaders. The 27 of Dr. Jeff Berg is 1 lap down. And the number 9 of Jim Kirk is just ahead of our race leader, the number 69 of Bill Kimmel Jr. Race leaders moving around the outside of Dr. Jeff Berg and Joey Williamson to put them one lap down as they move off into turns 1 and 2. Joe Williamson in car number 11, and his car is off the pace up now and heads for pit road. The number 11 of Joe Williamson moving into the pit area. Jeff Fultz in car number 30. He is also pulling down into the pit area. Driver out of Milford, Ohio, the King Motorsports Pontiac, down on the pit road for some servicing. The number 30 of Jeff Fultz. It's Bill Kimmel Jr. out front. The number 68 of Frank Kimmel in second. The number 49 of Roland Isaacs goes third. At fourth, Brian Ross in car number 42. And then rounding out the top 5, Chuck Winders. Going sixth, it's Keith Gardner. Seventh to Lenny LeGrand. Now eighth to Bobby Gill. Ninth to Dave Waltemeyer. And in the 10th place spot, Freddie Query. It looks like Joe Williamson in the number 11 has had a problem, and the car is having trouble restarting. Now Williamson pulls away from his pit area and back onto the racetrack. Here goes Keith Gardner down to the inside of Chuck Winders as they move on to the back straightaway, and Keith Gardner moves up into the number 5 position. Jr. is the number 69 now, moving up to the outside of the number 36 of Jerry Russell, and overlaps the number 14 of Josh Clemens. He'll follow the number 5 of Bill Webb into turns 1 and 2. As Webb moves up to the outside of Paul Porter, Kimmel follows around the outside. Kimmel puts a lot of lapped cars between himself and the rest of the field as they move on to the front straightaway. Comes Kimmel up to the outside of Brett Oakley in the number 45 of Dave Jackson. Jackson follows Brett Oakley into turns 1 and 2. Kimmel moves up around the outside of Jackson down to the outside of Brett Oakley out of Middletown, Ohio. Pulling up to the outside of Dr. Jeff Berg to put him 2 laps down. And he follows Webb into turns 1 and 2. Looking back through now, we've got Frank Kimmel in the number 68 moving up to the outside of Dr. Jeff Berg. Roland Isaacs following him across the start-finish line. And they move back into turns 1 and 2. Keith Gardner in the number 98 to the outside of Paul Porter. And he scoots in behind Dave Jackson's number 45. Kevin Willis in car number 41 now. His car a bit off the pace heading into turns 1 and 2. And now Bill Kimmel Jr. moves down to the inside of the number... Whoa, trouble in turns 1 and 2. Lenny LeGrand, Jerry Russell, the 6 of Dave Weltemeyer, and Freddie Query in car number 81. Debris on the track down at turns 1 and 2, and the 2 cars are still up against the outside retaining wall. And that'll bring Brett Oakley on the inside, Bill Kimmel Jr. on the outside. They come out of line, so they'll send them around one more time. Middletown, Ohio's Brett Oakley, 1 lap down to the race leaders, but will be lining up on the inside of Kimmel for the restart. And they're back under green in the Renegades Racing 300. spot, works his way around the 48 of Brett Oakley, who is one lap down to the race leaders. Gardner, oh, and Isaacs moves to the inside of Frank Kimmel, the battle for second. Pee Wee Valley, Kentucky's Roland Isaacs moves into the number 2 spot. Frank Kimmel with a problem in car number 68 as he continues to back up through the field. Frank Kimmel in 68 with a problem on that machine and quite possibly may be headed for the pit area. Bill Kimmel Jr. is the number 69 out front. With Roland Isaacs now at second, Keith Gardner runs third, Chuck Winters at fourth. The battle for the number 5 spot now, the number 51, Bobby Gill out of Dalton, Georgia. Moving down to the inside of Lenny LeGrand, and here comes Kimmel on the pit road. The problem looks to be a right rear tire going down on Frank Kimmel's car. As the Kimmel Racing team changes the right rear tire on that car, but he has lost considerable time to the race leaders. Tracks down and away, and Frank Kimmel in the number 68 returns to action. The 48 of Brett Oakley spins going into turns 1 and 2, hitting the outside retaining wall, and the field is back under caution. Fultz in the number 30 now, pulling ahead of Paul Porter. Fultz trying to get back one of his laps that he lost in the pit area, and he'll run side by side with Kimmel to the start-finish line. Kimmel out front, Jeff Fultz in the number 30 trying to get back one of his lost laps. Current points leader on the NASCAR Slim Jim All-Pro Series circuit. And they move on to the turns 1 and 2. Gardner in the number 98 at third spot, challenging Roland Isaacs now as they come out of turn number 4. Frank Kimmel in number 68 moving down to the inside of Joe Williamson, and they make contact on the back straightaway. Several cars spinning around Kevin Willis in the number 41. Joe Williamson in the 11. Frank Kimmel recovers and pulls back onto the racetrack. And the green flag remains out as the 11 of Joe Williamson loses yet another lap for the race leaders. Turn number 4, and Bill Kimmel Jr. continues to lead. The number 30 of Jeff Fultz, though, his car appears to be getting just as fast as Kimmel's, although Fultz is several laps down. They move up behind Dr. Jeff Berg's number 27 to put him at least another lap down. Roland Isaacs, second place car now. Moving into turns 1 and 2, Keith Gardner in the number 98 right there behind him as they move on to the back straightaway. Chuck Winters down in the number 4 spot. And then a ways back to Bobby Gill out of Dalton, Georgia in the number 51 machine. Switch up for second, and here comes the 4-time champion, Keith Gardner, up into the number 2 spot. Making the pass on the inside of Roland Isaacs, and Jeff Fultz goes on a spin out of turn number 2. The number 30 of Fultz spins down to the infield and will remain green flag racing for the moment. Larry Metters in car number 20 now, returning to racing action. action after servicing in the pit area. 228 laps remaining. And here's Bill Kimmel Jr. across the start-finish line and into turns 1 and 2. And Keith Gardner out of Louisville, Kentucky now closes up to within about 8 car lengths of Kimmel. Into turns 1 and 2, the interval between first and second place continues to diminish now, down to about 3 to 4 car lengths. Gardner is closing in on Kimmel as they come across the start-finish line with 224 laps remaining. Ohio's Dave Jackson going yet another lap down. Car number 45 to our race leader, Bill Kimmel Jr. The race leader onto the back straightaway, but Gardner is not far off his pace, only about 4 to 5 car lengths behind in the runner-up spot right now. Meanwhile, Roland Isaacs in the number 49 moves around the outside of Brett Oakley, and he brings along the number 8 of Chuck Winters with him. Winters running in the number 4 spot. Bobby Gill in car number 51, the 5th place running car out of Dalton, Georgia, the Terminal Trucking Company Racing Chevrolet. Closing up behind number 8 of Chuck Winters now as they move into turns 1 and 2. Out of turn number 4, side by side, Frank Kimmel in car number 68, who is no longer on the lead lap, taking a chance, and now Bill Kimmel Jr. moves around the outside of him to put his younger brother at least another lap down. Keith Gardner in the 98 follows Kimmel around the outside of Frank Kimmel as they head into turns 1 and 2. The number 51 of Bobby Gill has gotten around Chuck Winters for the 4th place spot. Watching is Roland Isaacs in car number 49. The 3rd place running car sets up on some slower traffic as he moves to the outside of Jeff Fultz. Now to the outside of Paul Porter, and he closes up behind Jim Kirk's number 9 over in turn number 3. Isaacs moves to the outside of Kirk here on the front straightaway as they move off into turns 1 and 2. And Isaacs clears Kirk onto the back stretch and now closes up behind Frank Kimmel. Meanwhile, the battle for the lead. And here's Keith Gardner in the number 98, moving in behind Bill Kimmel Jr. And this has been as much of a challenge for that lead spot as Bill Kimmel Jr. has experienced so far in the race of it. 211, soon to be 210 remaining. Time on the race leader, Bill Kimmel Jr. is a 15:58. So Kimmel's pace has picked up a bit since early on when he was turning some laps of a 15:81. He is now turning laps of 15.58. So Kimmel is definitely picking up the pace, but Keith Gardner in the number 98 continues to chase him down as they come out of turn number 4. Meanwhile, we've got a battle at third. Here's Bobby Gill in the number 51. Moving underneath Roland Isaacs in car number 49 on the back straightaway. In Dalton, Georgia's Bobby Gill now moves into the number 3 position. Tim Rader in car number 24 after servicing to that car. Rader returning to action in car number 24 now. Frank Kimmel in car number 68. It looks like he's going to pull into the infield and withdraw from the race event. Frank Kimmel in car number 68 out of action. Trouble in turn number 1. Larry Metters in car number 20 getting turned around. The rest of the field going high and low to avoid him. And the red flag comes out. The red flag coming out after Louisville, Kentucky's Larry Metters spins in turns number 1 and 2. Red flag coming out. It remains to be seen if he can go the rest of the distance with no further servicing. The number 51, Bobby Gill. Ready to put him back under green. Looks as though Frank Kimmel in car number 68 has returned to racing action. We originally thought he might have withdrawn the entry, but Kimmel is back on the racetrack. 68, Kimmel. So Roland Isaacs now re-inherits the number 3 spot after Bobby Gill pulls out of line for a pit stop. Gill remains on the lead lap but gave up that 3rd place positioning. Paul Porter in car number 16 now returning to racing action. Whoa, trouble on the back straightaway as Keith Gardner turns around. Bill Kimmel Jr. as well. And Frank Kimmel, the 68, is collected by Joey Williamson. And it looks, and again, judging by the smoke from underneath Bill Kimmel Jr.'s hood, it looks like, and we're just speculating, Bill Kimmel Jr. might have lost an engine on the back straightaway, setting up a chain reaction accident involving the 98 of Gardner. The yellow flag comes out. Gardner pulls away from the scene of the accident, but again, smoke continues to billow from underneath the hood of Kimmel's car. It's quite possible Kimmel might have lost an engine on the back straightaway, causing that chain reaction accident. We'll give you some further updates just as soon as we get some official word. Number 49 of Roland Isaacs, now the race leader. Jeff Fultz at car number 30, though, continues to race side by side with Isaacs out of turn number 4. Jackson Racing holding down the first 2 spots now. Roland Isaacs in 49 and the 04 of Lenny LeGrand out of Louisville, Kentucky. First and second. Here's the battle at third now as Brian Ross in car number 42 drops down to the inside of Brian Baum. And Brian Ross now takes over the number 3 spot from Baum. Keep your eye eyes on the number 51 of Bobby Gill out of Dalton, Georgia. He's marched that car up through the field, was racing among the leaders before stopping early on for a pit stop. Now he chases Brian Baum, 74, into turns 1 and 2. Bobby Gill in the Terminal Trucking Racing Chevrolet is on the move here. He drops down to the inside of Brian Baum and now moves in behind Brian Ross in car number 42. So Bobby Gill's on the move here. Black flag being displayed to Dr. Jeff Berg in car number 27 as he drops down to the inside, and he'll be heading towards the infield pit area. Roland Isaacs, the race leader, the Stouts Pick Pack Racing Chevrolet, leads the field back into turns 1 and 2. Bobby Gill out of Dalton, Georgia, the Terminal Trucking Racing Chevrolet now is up to the number 2 position. Remember, Gill has already made a pit stop and may not require any further servicing. Watching the battle back in the number 3 position now, Lenny LeGrand in the number 04 and the 42 of Brian Ross head off into turns 1 and 2. Chuck Winters and then Keith Gardner is just behind them now as they move on to the back straightaway. Here's Roland Isaacs in 49, having his best run in 1997 here at Louisville Speedway, and he moves up to the outside of Brett Oakley. Makes the pass on Oakley, heading into turns 1 and 2. Larry Metters in car number 20 now returns to the pit area for further servicing, and Paul Porter's in the number 16, the Honor and Glory Racing Team, servicing that car as he returns to action as well. Checking back through the field, Keith Gardner in the number 98 and Chuck Winters in car number 8 continue to battle for the 5th and 6th spots now as they come down the front straightaway. 170 laps remaining. Black flag on Paul Porter once again, car number 16. Okay, here's Bobby Gill out of Dalton, Georgia, in the number 51, closing up behind Roland Isaacs. First and second place move bumper to bumper across the start-finish line and back into turns 1 and 2. Here goes Gill, and Gill drops down to the inside of Isaacs and takes away the number 1 position. New race leader this time out of turn number 4. Bobby Gill out of Dalton, Georgia, the Terminal Trucking Company Chevrolet is our new race leader with 167 laps remaining. We check back again at the battle at third. And we've got Lenny LeGrand in car number 04, Brian Ross in 42 as they move out of turn number 4 and across the start-finish line. Lenny LeGrand trying to hold on to that number 3 spot, but Brian Ross in 42 continues to charge him down as we have 164 laps remaining. Now Keith Gardner in the number 98. Whoa, and he makes a little contact with Chuck Winters there. And that battle for the 6th place position. Right now we're showing the number 14 of Josh Clemens in the number 5 position now. Clemens in 14 running 5th. again, we continue to watch, and now they're posting the 8 car of Winters in the number 5 spot. So the 14 of Clemens must be at least a lap down now, according to scoring and timing. Gardner and Winters continue to duke it out for the number 5 spot onto the back straightaway. Right now, they are just behind Josh Clemens as well as Brian Ross as they move out of turn 4 and onto the front straightaway. Here goes Gardner again to the inside of Winters. And he nearly pulls up side by side again over in turn number 3. Gardner has the inside of Winters, and Gardner now moves into the number 5 position. Bobby Gill out of Dalton, Georgia, the race leader in the Terminal Trucking Company Racing Chevrolet. About 3 to 4 car lengths back, Pee Wee Valley, Kentucky's Roland Isaacs in the number 2 spot. And then running third is stablemate out of the Don Jackson Racing Team stable. Lenny LeGrand in the 04 continues in 3rd position. Running 4th, it's Brian Ross in the number 42. And then the number 98 of Keith Gardner running 5th. At 6th, it's Chuck Winters. And then 7th, the Brian Baum. We're 6 laps away from that Right Way Industries $500 bonus for the leader at the halfway race event. 156 on the board, 150 will be the mark. And Bobby Gill out of Dalton, Georgia leads the field back into turns 1 and 2. And Isaacs continues at about 10 car lengths behind. Four laps away from the halfway mark. Bobby Gill, one of the top performers on the Hooters Cup Series circuit, leads the field back into turns 1 and 2. And once again, it stays at about 10 car lengths, the interval between 1st and 2nd. Isaacs in car number 49 in the number 2 spot. Gardner now in the number 98, and he'll take a peek to the inside of Josh Clemens, finds some racing room, and completes the pass on Clemens over in turn 3. Chuck Winters in the number 8 also moves by the inside of Josh Clemens as they head into turns 1 and 2. At the halfway mark, $500 bonus going out to the number 51 of Bobby Gill from Right Way Industries. Posting the $500 bonus, Bobby Gill out of Dalton, Georgia has collected that $500 bonus from Right Way Industries. And again, our thanks going out to Dave Embry, president of Right Way Industries, posting 2 bonuses tonight, the pole position and the halfway mark, $500 apiece there from Right Way Industries. The battle going on right now for 3rd, 4th, and 5th onto the back straightaway. Lenny LeGrand in the number 04. And it looks like a trail of sparks is beginning to show from the rear of Lenny LeGrand's car all the way around the racetrack. He is running 3rd, but right now Brian Ross in car number 42 takes a look down to the inside of him. Gardner will pull up to the outside of Ross, the challenge for the number 4 position. On to the front straightaway. Keith Gardner in 98 now moves up into the number 4 position and now chases down Lenny LeGrand. Gardner now moving up to the outside of LeGrand as they come over to turn number 4. So Keith Gardner in the Barley Ford Thunderbird, Anson Gas Grill and Fireside Shops sponsored entry, has now moved into the number 3 spot. Brett Oakley coming out of the infield there in turn number 4. Car number 48, the Marflex Waterproofing Chevrolet out of Middletown, Ohio. 143 laps remaining. Bobby Gill in car number 51, the race leader. Roland Isaacs in car number 49, in that interval between, trouble in turn number 1, and Keith Gardner barely makes it past Dave Jackson in the spun car, the number 9 of Jim Kirk. Boy, I tell you what, Keith Gardner had to do some heads-up driving there to avoid Dave Jackson's number 45 there in turn number 1. 42 leads the field off into turns 1 and 2. Driver out of Plymouth, Indiana. Car number 42, Brian Ross, leads the field onto the front straightaway. 133 remaining in tonight's Renegades Racing 300. Chuck Winters in car number 8 now, posting up in the second place spot. It's the best run of the night so far for Chuck Winters out of nearby Pleasure Ridge Park, Kentucky, in the Phillips Lighting Racing Chevrolet. Bobby Gill in car number 51 now at third. Going fourth, it's the number 49 of Roland Isaacs. Now running fifth, the number 74 of Brian Baum. They're back into turns 1 and 2. Number 42 out of Plymouth, Indiana. Races on the Indiana Late Model Series. Onto the front straightaway as our race leader. Right now he's got about a 2.5 second lead over Chuck Winters. Winters now a challenge for the second place spot as the number 51 of Bobby Gill rolls up to the outside of the Louisville Motor Speedway's leading career feature event winner here. Gill looking down to the inside of Winters, now switching up again, looking to the outside, falls back about a car length, and then closes up behind Winters' rear bumper again as they head for turn number 4. Roland Isaacs, and now 98 Gardner has gotten around Brian Baum, and he moves into the number 5 position, and here comes Gardner down to the inside. And he passes Roland Isaacs on the inside going into turn number 1. The 30 of Jeff Fultz is back on the pit road again, and the King Motorsports team surfaces the number 30 of Fultz. Brian Ross in car number 42 continues to lead out of Plymouth, Indiana. And we're watching the battle back at second, third, and fourth place now as they move out of turn number 4 and onto the front straightaway. Terrific battle for second, third, fourth, and fifth onto the back straightaway. Here's Bobby Gill. He takes a look to the inside of Chuck Winters. Jeff Fultz in the number 30 returns to racing action. 121 on our scoreboard here tonight at Louisville Speedway. Brian Ross continues to lead. Okay, and Bobby Gill makes the move down to the inside of Chuck Winters. Here comes Gardner, and Gardner now moves up into the number 3 position. They move back into turns 1 and 2. Right now trying to put a lap on Bill Webb, number 5. Bobby Gill takes a look down to the inside of Webb, pulls up side by side with him, pulls the trigger, and he's got his man over in turn number 3. Gardner in the number 98 now drops down to the inside of Webb as well. Falls back about 6 to 7 car lengths behind the 51 of Bobby Gill. $10,000 on the line tonight. We're 117 laps away from deciding who will take home the first place prize money. Over $30,000 purse here tonight in the Renegades Racing 300. Your race leader out of Plymouth, Indiana is the number 42 of Brian Ross. Car number 51, Bobby Gill out of Dalton, Georgia, running in second. And Gill is slowly closing up on our race leader, Brian Ross, as they move on to the back straightaway. Only the lapped car of Josh Clements separating first and second place. Gill dives down underneath the number 14 of Josh Clements. As they head into turns 1 and 2. Gardner in the number 98, his car loosens up a bit heading into turns 1 and 2. Meanwhile, we got a battle for the lead out of turn number 4. Bobby Gill in the number 51 underneath Brian Ross is number 42, and they're side by side on the back straightaway. Onto the front straightaway again, and the 42 of Ross retakes the lead. But Gill continues along on the inside as they move on to the back straightaway with 110 laps remaining. Dalton, Georgia's Bobby Gill edges out front in the Terminal Trucking Company Racing Chevrolet. And overtakes Brian Ross for the lead now with 109 laps remaining. Seven laps remaining. Bobby Gill out of Dalton, Georgia, continues to lead. Brian Ross out of Plymouth, Indiana, running in second. Louisville, Kentucky's Keith Gardner runs third. Pleasure Ridge Park, Kentucky's Chuck Winters in fourth. And from Pee Wee Valley, Kentucky, Roland Isaacs in car number 49 rounds out the top 5. Going 6th, Brian Baum from Louisville, Kentucky, unofficially at 7th, the number 04 of Lenny LeGrand. Gill in the number 51 moving up to the outside of Jim Kirk heading into turns 1 and 2. The interval between first and second place stays at about 3 to 4 car lengths. And then it is way back to the third place running car of Keith Gardner as they shuffle across the start finish line and head into turns 1 and 2. Once again across the start finish line with 101 laps remaining. To go this time around. Been noticing a wisp of smoke following car number 98, Keith Gardner, going into turns 1 and 2. The car's beginning to smoke. 98 may be having a problem. Here's Roland Isaacs now in car number 49, moving up behind the 8 car of Chuck Winders. This is the battle for fourth. Isaacs in car number 49 drops down to the inside of Winders, and Roland Isaacs moves his car back into the number 4 spot. .96 laps remaining. Bobby Gill in the number 51 continues to lead. He keeps the interval between first and second about 10 car lengths. Meanwhile, Keith Gardner in the number 98 is currently in third. But again, we are monitoring a possible problem on the number 98 car of Gardner. He heads into turns 1 and 2, and again, a wisp of smoke continues to follow that Ford Thunderbird. Roland Isaacs in car number 49 now at the 4th place spot continues to reel Keith Gardner in as they head into turns 1 and 2. Keeping an eye on Roland Isaacs in car number 49. He appears to be reeling in, I should say, the number 98 of Keith Gardner as they move on to the front straightaway. Isaacs now the Stats Pick Pack number 49 Chevrolet moving in on the 3rd place running car of Keith Gardner. Only 89 laps now remaining. Lenny LeGrand in car number 04 just about set to go a lap down to the number 51 of Bobby Gill, and LeGrand is now 1 lap down to our race leader Bobby Gill. Roland Isaacs in car number 49 has made his way past Keith Gardner, and Isaacs now is in the number 3 position. Winders has now made his way past the number 98 car of Gardner as he continues to backslide through the field, and there is definitely a problem on car number 98, Keith Gardner. We noticed about 10 or 15 laps ago the number 98 machine began smoking going into turns 1 and 2, and at that point the car had begun to slow down some. Laps remaining as Bobby Gill continues to lead, and he's opened up the interval between first and second about a half straightaway now to Brian Ross in car number 42. Keith Gardner's problems continue now as our race leader, the number 51 of Bobby Gill, appears to be closing up on Gardner and may put him at least 1 lap down to the field. Trouble on the back straightaway, and Chuck Winders goes up in smoke on the back straightaway. The 74 of Brian Baum was also involved, the number 5 of Bill Webb. Now we've been noticing a wisp of smoke behind the number 8 car of Chuck Winders for a few laps, and it looks like Winders' car may have expired an engine going into turn number 1. Tell you what, in the 90s. turns 1 and 2. Bobby Gill in the number 51, the race leader. Now Roland Isaacs in the number 49 has taken away the number 2 spot after Brian Ross made a pit stop to have a tire replaced on that car. 74 laps remaining. Here's Isaacs in 49. He'll drop underneath Lenny LeGrand as Isaacs begins to chase down the number 51 of Bobby Gill. They're back into turns 1 and 2. Here's 74, Brian Baum. He's in the 3rd place spot. Keith Gardner running 4th. And at 5th, the number 5 of Bill Webb. So Baum, Gardner, and Webb are all right together over in turn number 3. Onto the front straightaway another time. Bobby Gill out of Dalton, Georgia, the Terminal Trucking Company Chevrolet, 70 to go, and he leads the field back into turns 1 and 2. The number 49 of Roland Isaacs in the number 2 spot. Stouts Pick Pack Racing Chevrolet out of the Don Jackson Racing Team stable. Here's Keith Gardner in the number 98 as he moves past the inside of Brian Baum, and he'll bring Bill Webb in car number 5 along with him. 68 laps to go. Here's Webb in the battle for 3rd. And Webb takes over the number 3 spot now as they move into turns 1 and 2. Gill continues to lead. It's over a dozen car lengths back to the number 49 of Roland Isaacs. 2nd place running car. Then Bill Webb in car number 5 goes 3rd. At 4th, it'll be Keith Gardner. And rounding out the top 5, the number 74, Brian Baum. Brian Ross in car number 42 with a brand new right rear tire on that car. Unofficially just outside the top 5 in the running order, but on the lead lap. Between 1st and 2nd stays about the same, just over a dozen car lengths or so between Bobby Gill's number 51 and Roland Isaacs number 49 as they move on down the front straightaway. The number 5 of Bill Webb currently in 3rd with Keith Gardner running 4th, and Brian Baum in the number 74 at 5th. Right now the best race on the racetrack is for 3rd position as Bill Webb at car number 5, after making repeated pit stops, continues on the lead lap in 3rd position, but he's got the number 98 of Keith Gardner right behind him, about 3 to 4 car lengths as they move out of turn number 4. 57 lap, 56 now to go. Bobby Gill out of Dalton, Georgia, the Terminal Trucking Company Chevrolet. He didn't come all the way from Dalton, Georgia to not pick up the first place prize money of $10,000 here tonight for nothing. I tell you, it's a long trip from Georgia, but it just might be well worth it for the number 51 of Gill. He's across the start-finish line now with 54 laps remaining. Roland Isaacs in 49, dives underneath Kevin Willis, the number 9 of Jim Kirk. And it looks like the interval between first and second has tightened up a bit. Still stays at about 10 car lengths, and then Joey Williamson in number 53 goes on a spin on the backstretch and down into the infield. And once again, it looks like the interval between first and second is beginning to tighten up a bit. Roland Isaacs in the number 49 appears to be closing up on our race leader, the number 51 of Bobby Gill. Isaacs moves up to the outside of Jim Kirk as they move on to the back straightaway. 50 laps to go this time around. Again, the best battle on the racetrack is for third, Bill Webb in the number 5 and the 98 of Gardner. Continue to square off for third and fourth spot now as they move on to the back straightaway. Brian Ross in the number 42, still inside the top 5 in the running order. Although it's a ways back now from Gardner. He has gotten around Brian Baum, so Baum would be in the number 6 position. Winders slowing now here on the front straightaway. Chuck Winders in car number 8 and maybe headed back towards the pit area. Chuck Winders in car number 8 now, pulls into the infield, and it looks like he will be headed for his pit stall. .46 to go here tonight. Bobby Gill in car number 51, the race leader, but that interval between first and second is beginning to tighten up a bit as Roland Isaacs in the number 49 continues to move in on Bobby Gill. It's 2 3/4 seconds separating first and second spot now. Isaacs out of Pee Wee Valley, Kentucky in the number 49, beginning to stalk our race leader, Bobby Gill of Dalton, Georgia. And again, that interval between first and second stays at about 10 to 12 car lengths. We're down to it now with 40 laps remaining. Gill out front with Isaacs running at second. The number 5 of Bill Webb runs third. Keith Gardner in fourth. And at fifth, it's the number 42 of Brian Ross with Brian Baum in the number 6 position. And Baum bobbles going into turn number 1, the number 74. And he moves up the banking. Here comes Gill in the number 51. And now we have 6 cars on the lead lap. Excuse me, 5 cars on the lead lap with Brian Baum at car number 74 going 1 lap down in the 6th place position. battle opening up now between first and second. Bobby Gill in the 51. And we got a switch up for third on the backstretch. Keith Gardner in the number 98 moves past the inside of Bill Webb and into the number 3 position. Gardner in 98 now runs at third. "35 laps remaining as the number 51 of Bobby Gill continues to lead. And Webb in car number 5 drops down onto pit road and moves into the pit area. The number 5 out of the Harris Webb Racing Stables now moving into the pit area. Webb going 1 lap down to the race leaders now. And away he goes to number 5 of Bill Webb. 33 laps, now 32 to go. Bobby Gill in car number 51, the race leader, moving on to the back straightaway. Roland Isaacs in car number 49 now, and again that interval is beginning to stretch out a bit. Bobby Gill pulling away from Roland Isaacs, and he'll lead the field onto the front straightaway with 30 laps remaining. Now our race leader, Bobby Gill, moves up behind Joe Williamson in the 11, Josh Clements at 14. And Lenny LeGrand in car number 04. Gill drops down to the inside of Williamson, now folding up to the inside of Josh Clements. He'll move up to the outside of Jim Kirk and overlap Kirk as well as Fred Oakley going into turns 1 and 2 and follow Josh Clements onto the back straightaway. "26 laps remaining. Isaacs now pulling up to the outside of the 48 machine of Brett Oakley. Keith Gardner in third spot right now as he moves out of turn number 4 and onto the front straightaway. The 51 of Gill now pulling up to the outside of Lenny LeGrand to put LeGrand at least 2 laps down to the field. They are side by side in turn number 4 as they move on to the front straightaway. Roland Isaacs in the number 49, and again that interval between first and second stays about the same. The 98 of Gardner now appears to be closing up on Roland Isaacs, as the number 42 of Brian Ross now has shown up on our leaderboard in the number 4 spot with Brian Baum in car number 74, 1 lap down and in the 5th place position. Down to it now with 20 to go. Bobby Gill and the number 51 leads the field back into turns 1 and 2. To go, and the race leaders are back into the first and second turn again. Here's Keith Gardner in the number 98. He's again appears to be closing up on Roland Isaacs in the number 49. Meanwhile, we've got a good battle just behind them. It's the 42 of Brian Ross and 74 of Brian Baum across the start-finish line. And they head back into turns 1 and 2. $17 to go, and Isaacs has not been able to close up on Bobby Gill. However, Gardner in 98 is beginning to close up on Roland Isaacs as they head over to turn number 3. Back across the start-finish line and into turns 1 and 2 another time. Our race leader, Bobby Gill, moves over to turn 3, over to turn number 4, moving in behind Brett Oakley's number 48, and we've got 15 to go. Laps away from a $10,000 payday for Bobby Gill of Dalton, Georgia, if he can hold on for the number 1 position in this event. Keith Gardner in the number 98, closing up behind Roland Isaacs. In the interval between second and third is at about 10 car lengths right now. Gardner again closing up on Isaacs. Gardner bobbles the car a little going into turns 1 and 2 and then drops back a bit.
Ronnie, Scott here. You know who Larry Wilson is in Pickard? Larry Wilson, the guy who Pickard it?
10 laps remaining for Bobby Gill as he moves off into turns 1 and 2. A straightaway back to Roland Isaacs in second. And then Keith Gardner is about 10 car lengths behind Isaacs in third.
Yeah, Larry Wilson with Pickard.
Brian Ross in the number 42
by the time he gets there, we should make it
is in the number 4 spot. And then Brian Baum rounds out the top 5 in car number 74. Down to the single digits. 9 laps and soon to be 8 away from a finish. Bobby Gill from a $10,000 payday here tonight at Louisville Motor Speedway.
No, I'm just going to do a quick interview, then we're going to roll into victory lane. I think everybody's staying in, and they're going to go.
Okay, you want to switch mics now?
You want to? Yeah, down. Don't forget to switch the inputs. No, I can switch them now, right?
Yeah. Getting down to it now. 5 laps remaining. This time around for Bobby Gill of Dalton, Georgia, and the Terminal Trucking Racing Chevrolet as they move back into turns 1 and 2. Roland Isaacs and Keith Gardner now have the battle going on for the number 2 spot. Here's Gardner in the number 98 chasing down Isaacs, and they're bumper to bumper headed for turn number 3. 4 laps remaining as Bobby Gill moves back into turns 1 and 2. Gardner chasing down Isaacs for the number 2 spot, and they're into turns 1 and 2. Gardner takes a look to the outside, falls back about a car length, now moves in on Isaacs again as they head for turn number 3. 3 laps remaining. Bobby Gill in the number 51 onto the back straightaway. And out of turn number 4 with 2 to go. Meanwhile, we'll take a look back at second, and it's Roland Isaacs in 49, Keith Gardner in 98. Gardner again whoops to the outside of the 49 of Isaacs as they move on to the back straightaway. Gardner trying to make the move on the outside. The white flag's out, 1 to go. It's Gill into turns 1 and 2. Onto the back straightaway. Gardner again moving up to the outside of Isaacs. Gill in the number 51 out of turn number 4 takes the checkered flag. For second, it's the number 49 of Roland Isaacs with the number 98 of Keith Gardner finishing up at third. The 42 of Brian Ross across the line at fourth. And the number 74 of Brian Baum across the line in the number 5 position. Bobby Gill out of Dalton, Georgia, in the Terminal Trucking Company Racing Chevrolet. $10,000 first place prize money winner, and he's going to take all that money back to Dalton, Georgia. We'll join Scott Douglas down along trackside for a very short interview with tonight's race winner. A good run tonight for Roland Isaacs in the number 49 machine, his best run in 1997. And a good run tonight for Keith Gardner in the number 98, who made the car last all 300 laps. 42, Brian Ross out of Plymouth, Indiana, across the line at 4th. And Brian Baum in one of his best performances ever here at Louisville Motor Speedway in car number 74 comes home 5th. We'll go down trackside to Scott Douglas. Brown, Doug Richardson in the 25 and the 98 of Tommy Winburn will lead them to the green flag. Winburn now, Tommy Winburn challenging on the outside. They are side by side over in turn number 3. And Winburn pulls right up behind the 17 of Don Baylor. Terry Williams in 46 following him on through. We have Dave Moran now in the number X pulling up to the outside of the 06 of Marty Duval as they move back into turns 1 and 2. Terry Williams in the number 46 looking up to the outside of Tommy Winburn to challenge for the lead spot now as they move over to turns 3 and 4. 19 laps remaining as they cross the start-finish line and move back into turns 1 and 2.